And that leads us to our morning session here with Jürgen Wagner on podcast blog RSS web20 e-learning in the classroom. If you Google Jürgen Weber, you find a serious professional. www.wagner-jürgen.de. It's a very interesting website. It has links for teachers of English and French, and also provides information on innovatives Lehren und Lernen mit Software, I hope I get this right, La Souveraineté, and of course many things from Lehrer online. Jürgen Wagner is with the Landesinstitut für Pädagogik und Medien Saarbrücken. He's a teacher of English and French at the gymnasium in the summer. We Bavarians don't really like it if experts from tiny countries like the Saarland are really good and better than us in doing some things. Still a very hearty welcome. We're happy to have you, and we're very much looking forward to your presentation. Mr. Wagner, please.
Thank you. So I'm just as happy and pleased to be with you here today. And Mr. Schreuder, you may have a French department. I'd like to come here and present things in French as well. I'm a split personality. Half of me is French, half of me is English, and I can never make up my mind which of the two I should actually prefer. Now, actually, when Frau Hieber just read today's schedule to you, and actually the title of my presentation, you may have noticed that it consisted of 6 different subjects. They forgot wikis, which should be included in that, so it makes 7. They told me I have 2 hours, now I only have 1 hour and 3/4. It is a daunting challenge, and there is a risk that I might kill you with what is called death by PowerPoint, because I prepared hundreds of wonderful PowerPoint slides. But then again, yesterday I had some conversations with certain colleagues, and during those conversations I realized that it might be a lot more interesting for you if actually I did something rather more simplistic with you, but which at the same time might encourage you to start using certain classroom practices, often connected with the buzzword Web 2 or Web 2.0, and we will have to adapt our teaching practices, our methodology, to certain changes that do happen or that are happening at the moment. Tonight, Antonio Lopez will speak to us about the digital divide. Now, what he will say about the digital divide will probably be a little different from what I tell you about a potential digital divide. The digital divide I'm talking about is what a man called Mark Prensky stated, which is a disconnect between teachers and their pupils. Our pupils are reared, are socialized in a completely different way from the way we were brought up. So they sort of develop different ways of thinking, different thinking patterns. And the question is whether we can reach our pupils with the methods we are still trying to apply, and with our refusal to use things like podcasts, blogs, wikis, technology stuff, teachnology in the classroom. So what I decided to do with you today is we might set up our own podcast. We might try to set up our own blog, or I present an EFL sample blog I'm about to create. I just introduce you to it, and hopefully you will give me some more ideas later on as to how we might sort of enlarge the potential assignments we might use within that virtual classroom, which would be absolutely free of charge. Now, let me start with this. So, this is what you were to expect: podcasts, blogs, RSS feeds, wikis, Moodle, and web20. Quite a lot of stuff. We'll have to shorten it a little, probably. So actually I was going to start off with the central question, which was asked by Bernie Dodge, the inventor of the web20 formula, and his colleague at San Diego State University, Tom March, Australian born. And they said, here's the thing called the web, connected to classrooms. Can you make the most of it? So new media are changing the way we teach. What new media are there? And how can they be used in the classroom? So I've mentioned a few, and we'll shortly study them one after the other. Then we might ask, why must teaching change? It must change because of that disconnect due to the digital divide, because collaborative teaching strategies will become more and more familiar and widespread. And at the same time, there will be a change in the teacher's role in cyberspace. The teacher will no longer have the same role. So we might start off with the subject of podcasting, which is described here as an innovative form of teaching and learning. You can use it for both, actually, especially in the foreign language classroom. Now, podcasts are not limited to the foreign language classroom, but we may use them there. And what you see in the middle is that podcast logo or podcast signet. It signals to us that there is an audio file, or it could be something like a blog, which you can subscribe to. We'll learn a little later on how you subscribe to a podcast or to blog or even some other content like cartoons, for example. So the question is, what the heck is a podcast? Podcast was the word of the year 2005, crowned as such by the New Oxford American Dictionary. In September 2004, there were only 24 Google matches for the term podcast. In February 2006, there were 188 million. So you see that this is a real success story. And we'll encounter the same kind of success story with blogs. Every 5 months or so, the number of blogs doubles, according to Technorati, as we learned yesterday. A similar phenomenon could be described with the learning management system, Moodle, which also has exponential growth figures. And wikis definitely are such a success story as well. So podcasting is kind of a shooting star. It's a portmanteau word consisting of iPod and broadcasting. And it's also a case of deceptive packaging. The funny thing is, you don't need an iPod for podcasting, and you do not need broadcasting either. If you have believed all along that English is a rather illogical language, it looks as if you were right. There's a typo in that line. So it frees you from constraints of the physical classroom. Listeners can retain audio archives to listen to at their leisure. You listen when you want, where you want, how you want. Now this was published in Spotlight magazine. I'm happy to realize that today there is a special guest among us, Frau Kreil from Spotlight. Where is she? Tina Kreil from the Spotlight magazine. A magazine I would like to recommend to you, and especially the podcasts they publish. They have 3 very good podcasts which you can use free of charge, even if you don't buy the magazine. Now, how to subscribe to the podcast? You can subscribe to it via a software called iTunes. The problem is I cannot use an internet access with my notebook here now, otherwise I would have shown it to you live. Now I'm glad I've got this PowerPoint slide with me. You download the software iTunes from Apple. Then what you do, you need a file called an RSS feed. It normally ends in RSS or XML. You copy that address and then you click onto Podcast abonnieren, subscribe. You copy and paste this address into the box. Now at the top of the page you see the RSS feed of the podcast Breaking News English, one of the best podcasts around, made by a virtual friend of mine called Sean Banville, who used to teach for 12 years in Japan, who's in the United Emirates now, and there might be a chance of me meeting him during the summer holidays in London. So this is all you have to do. Once you say subscribe to this feed, and the next time you open your iTunes software and there is a new podcast episode, iTunes will automatically retrieve it from the internet and download it onto your computer, from where you can either play it or simply download it onto your iPod or ordinary MP3 player. Now, there are people who don't like Google, there are people who don't like Apple, there are people who like open source software a lot. Now, if you don't like Apple, for example, you could use Juice, the cross-platform podcast receiver. It's open source, so it comes for free, and it functions along parallel lines, which is you simply copy that RSS feed into a box, and then it will download all the new episode onto your stick. So a new word has come into existence, the word pedagogy, where podcasting meets teaching and learning. You recognize the German word, obviously, Pädagogik. Now explore the potential of podcasting and RSS for delivering instructional content. And you will also find words like education, for example. I wonder if this works now. I'll just give it a try. No, it won't work. I'll talk about it. There are 2 files about Paris Hilton. One is from Breaking News English, which I've just introduced you to. The other is from a site called ESL Podcasts. One of the files is a podcast, one isn't. I was going to play the files to you and ask you which one is the podcast and how did you guess? So this is Breaking News English. one of the best podcasts around actually. Paris Hilton returns to jail. Now, with Breaking News English podcasts, you always find the actual article as a Word file, as a PDF file, and as a downloadable MP3 file. Sean Bandel is an absolute workhorse.